You're the official one. You do it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rev and Rep podcast. This week's episode needs to come with a little bit of a disclaimer. The episode that we recorded, and just so we can peel back the curtain a little bit, all of our episodes are recorded weeks in advance so that, one, we've got some time to edit the footage so that we make sure we have great audio and video for y'all, as well as giving Danley and I a little bit of cushion in case of emergencies. And we've talked pretty openly about some of the things that might cause that within our personal lives. That said, this week is a little different for a few reasons. We interviewed Kyle Mann of the Babylon Bee, and we were really excited about bringing you guys that interview. And it is what's going to follow is our interview with Kyle Mann, the editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee. But you need to kind of look at this interview in a time capsule. This was originally recorded on December the 16th. Now, if you were to look at what's happened at the Babylon Bee since then, they've...
Several big things.
Yeah, they interviewed Elon Musk just days after we talked to Kyle. And in our interview with Kyle, we talked to him about how crazy it would be if they got to interview Elon Musk. But we also talk about the future of the Bee. And if you've been keeping up with some of the things that have happened over the last week, and now probably several days as it pours into the next week and things, there have been a lot of internal changes. Some that maybe they saw were coming and others that maybe they didn't. We don't really know. What we do know is that the episode that we got to record with Kyle was a lot of fun, and that he has a wonderful attitude in our interview and speaks very highly of a lot of people, but with respect to everybody involved, because we've had the pleasure of interviewing Seth, Dillon. We've gotten to interview Kyle, and we got to sit down with Ethan Nicole, who is one of the guys that now is no longer with the Babylon Bee. And we had great interviews with all of them. So this episode is going to be a little different. There are some things that have been edited because of that, because we want to be respectful of everybody involved, and because right now we don't really know very much.
There's a bunch that's in flux with them, and so I think Lucas and I talked. We really want to sit down and just share that with you guys. That this was recorded in advance. Some of the things that we're still waiting on some information to come out, but there's a lot of things in flux with the Bee. So I want to just give you guys that insight into the episode. That this was before, Ethan's exit, and there's a few other people's exit from that. So with that said, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. But.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for like the scoop of what really happened, this isn't the episode that you're going to want to look for. This doesn't have any of that information.
It's a very friendly episode. Kyle's a lot of fun. And we love all those guys, so we hope nothing for the best for them. But,
and we would ask, as this stuff continues to unfold, that you would join us and being in prayer for all of the guys, for the leadership at the Babylon Bee, as well as the guys who have been terminated and who have stepped away, with Ethan and Frank and AJ, who are incredibly talented people that the Lord has taken in another direction. It's going to be interesting. It's a story that we're going to continue to follow, and we might have some follow-up episodes where some of the guys are able to share their stories, or at least we give you updates on what information we do have so that you can continue to support them. But
we at the Rev and Rep take the high road.
For the first time ever.
Here comes Kyle Mann.
Yeah, we hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Grady Powell, host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm J. Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
This is Ben Adams.
Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Reiner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is Liam Morgan.
This is Graham Parker, the 5th GP, and this is why you should never
How I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
I just lowered the mic down a little bit. It shot off into the corner. I didn't touch it. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate. I'm Lucas Speaker, and we play the part of the Reverend. If you want to know what this is all about,
you have to wait till the end.
Yeah. Fast forward, and you'll... Danley, today... This is Danley, the Reprobate here in the flesh.
How's it going?
I hope your mom's doing good. Tell her I said hi.
I will. And just like Christina Randall, if y'all are returning subscribers, you're my babies.
Today on the show,
like, okay.
We're laughing because today on the show we had Kyle Mann from the Babylon Bee, who was
He's
just
awesome.
hilarious.
All of these things are his products. Go check it out.
Yeah, we
You
talked to
find
him
him
about his
online?
new book, The Babylon Bee's Guide to Wokeness, about the bee itself, what it's like running.
What it's like having Iron Man follow you.
Yeah, what it's like running the day-to-day operations of the bee, and how, as much as it is a satire site, it's also a business, and how he approaches it from a business leadership perspective is fairly interesting.
Yeah, and then the wheels completely fall off right at the end.
Yeah,
after Kyle.
we got some brilliant controlled rowdiness. We're not gonna bug. It's
great.
freaking
Thanks for
Kyle
coming.
Mann. Yeah, watch
Like,
it.
subscribe. We love y'all.
Stanley on our sweet, clean airwaves today. Expo is truly a man, myth, and legend. It is the former pastor, the first employee of the Babylon Bee outside of the creator, and the current editor-in-chief of what is my favorite, not just website on the internet, but source for music and news. It is the editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee, Kyle Mann. What's going on, Kyle? How are you, man?
Kyle.
Heck of an introduction, man. Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
So, living in the liberal utopia of California, how has recovery from the pandemic been for you guys? What are you guys doing since then? Like, other than just your stuff that you're doing on the Bee, I see that you're venturing into other things. What's it like being the editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee?
It's fun, man. It's a dream come true in so many ways. Like, I got here as I was a small town pastor, but that was mostly on the side. I was actually in construction sales, was my day job. So that's what I did all day long for like 12 years. And the Babylon Bee launched, and I immediately started just sending in headlines and got hired that way. So it's just crazy to me to wake up and, every job becomes a bit of a grind. Like no matter what you do, you can always find misery and boredom
Right.
and stress wherever you are. But I mean, sometimes I just have to pinch myself and have these out of body experiences where I'm sitting there like, I do not belong here. Like this isn't, I just kind of lucked and stumbled my way into doing this. And, it's just been a dream come true, man. I mean, you're talking about pandemic and living in California and, all the craziness that comes with that. It really does keep you sane to have a job where your job is to laugh about things and to find the humor in situations. And, I don't know, it's wild to think to think of where I would be if I hadn't kind of lucked into this, but, it's a lot of fun. So, people kind of talk about, that's totally my dream job. I wish I could work there. And like, a lot of times you can say to someone like that, like, oh no, it's not that good. It's still just a job. But no, really it is. it is pretty awesome to kind of just write humor for a living. So
yeah,
hopefully
we're working with some really talented people too.
Yeah,
Flower
Bed?
and all of his accomplishments, and Axe Cop is hilarious, and
the new sketches and animation stuff that you guys are doing are really funny. We've actually gotten the privilege of making friends because we heard them on your podcast. As a matter of fact, the Babylon Bee podcast is kind of what inspired us to get out and to start doing something different. Yeah, for sure.
Joe Rogan inspired me.
He has no inspiration. So we've gotten to chat with some people that have been in your skits, like Carrie Pomeroli, and Kira Davis has become a friend of ours over the last several months. They all rave about the way that you guys have created a culture that allows the creative process to flow naturally without being hindered. That there are such things as bad ideas, but that you as the editor-in-chief have really nurtured a great group of writers. You bring in people that help out to where they feel like they're allowed to be creative in ways that they aren't in the mainstream. What do you do as a leader that you think helps to inspire and to create that kind of freedom?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think.
Thank you.
I love. We interview people on the podcast, and you're interviewing some big name, and they're like, "Good question." And I'm like, "Wow, let's just camp on that for a second." But no, I mean, I think it's our philosophy really that like, people will ask, "Does comedy have a line that you can't go over?" Or what's the line that you can't cross? And that's true. There is a line, right? But I think that line is for like the editor to consider, or the during the development process of a joke or the final step of a joke, you might go, okay, this is going to get too much blowback, or or whatever the reason is. This doesn't make the point clearly enough. But to get around to your question, the writing process for the writers is the pitching process is a completely safe place. Like, you can pitch whatever you want. There's nobody's going to be like, don't pitch that idea, or, oh, that's too far, or, I let our writers just pitch whatever the heck they want. And I've kind of fairly hands off in terms of actual feedback for them. And I think that kind of fosters this sense of like, I can just shotgun a ton of ideas, and nobody's going to be like, oh, that idea is terrible. Don't pitch anything like that again. Or, I just kind of let the, like, what makes the cut is kind of the feedback, Yeah. So if someone's pitching 100 ideas and maybe they iterate on something a bunch of times and nobody's, we do a lot of this online in a Slack channel, and nobody's giving them the thumbs up, and they're not getting any reactions, and none of their ideas are getting published, then they kind of just take that as a hint, to move on to the next joke or the next kind of concept to pitch. So there's no judgment, or like, we don't want people writing from a place of fear that, this is, can I not go too far? You have to kind of have the writing process be like, just go all in, no matter what the concern is, and then let me worry about if it's too far or not. And that puts me in an awkward spot because I write a lot of the content too. So I have to take on, I have to write crazy stuff and then be able to scale it back as well on my own jokes, as the editor. So I don't know. It does feel like we've kind of just let people sort of find their niche and find their place naturally without giving a ton of feedback. It also makes it really awkward when people pitch me headline ideas like in person, because I get that all the time. People at church or friends or family, they're just like, hey, I've got this great idea, and they're standing right in front of you and they throw you something, and I'm just like, yeah. I don't like, that's not the way a headline is formed or pitched, or I need kind of a list of headlines, and I need to be going through them and just kind of be in my bat cave, like working on it. And that's how we kind of hone down to the right joke.
So you start with a big bucket and you let the cream rise, and you let it come to you, essentially. Well, the good news is I am not planning on pitching a headline to you.
Oh, I would neither of us are.
I would not deign to do so.
No,
it wouldn't be the first time that it has happened on a live podcast or radio show.
Oh, yeah.
Someone wants to read me like a dozen headlines.
No. I'm much more interested in finding out your process. Like, so we talked about the writer's room. Was there one that did you just kind of naturally unfold that way, that you, like you said, we've got a bunch of writers, I let them do what they want. What is funny will be funny. Or did you model it after, like I think of some of the classic the Seinfeld writers' room, or South Park, or some
Cheers
of those.
was another one that we heard a lot about.
Yeah, no, I didn't. We didn't model it after anything intentional. It was really just the founder of the Babylon Bee, Adam Ford.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah, may he rest in peace.
I really miss him.
Yeah, I really miss him too, man. He and I are both really introverted, and we didn't want this to be like, everybody. I've heard some other satire sites that'll do like a voting process. If something gets enough votes, it's democratic, then that gets published. And I think that's kind of how you lose a unique voice, where it's like we have a few people that have a very strong vision, and they know kind of where to steer the ship, comedically speaking, to kind of retain the voice. That's kind of my role, is to make sure that we retain the branding and the voice. And also, you bring up some of these TV shows. We do have some writing that is like that, and that's more in the video space when we're doing sketches or animation or whatever. Because developing a strong concept into a 3 or 4 minute long video is a much different process. That's much more guys sitting around with cigars and just all piling on with different, and you've done this with your friends, and you're all sitting around telling a funny story, and someone else throws something on top, and someone else, and you're all just making each other crack up. That's much more the process for doing a video. We have found that it doesn't work very well for like writing a headline, because that is such a weird, like such a specific art form. Like a headline has to be worded a very specific way for it to work, and I find that works better when I'm just all alone typing.
Yeah, I mean, every day. I don't know if it's quite every day, but it's almost every day when I look at the Babylon Bee app, I laugh at the picture and the headline, and I can then go in and read the detail that I'm sure you work very hard on. But the really funny part was the headline and the picture.
Yeah, the copy on the stories, I've come to discover, is actually also really funny. I mean, the headline is typically what gets the clicks and what gets the shares.
But when I bust out laughing, it's just the front page.
So how does the development for the copy
don't move
actually
on from
work?
what I'm talking about.
I'm segueing. How does the copy work? Are you the one that's writing all the copy for anything, or the guys who are writing the headlines actually doing that also?
So it's a fairly small crew, so it kind of depends on the day, but there are days where I might write half the copy on the website. I might write all of the copy on the website myself. I'm still very much involved in that. We are getting more. We're slowly kind of growing the company and the personnel to where we'll actually have people that are writing the copy for us. And so our eventual goal is that me and my managing editor Joel can sit down in the morning and hammer out, like, okay, here's maybe we publish about 8 articles a day. Mm-hmm. So we might sit down and go, like, here's 4 or 5 strong ideas. And then I can kind of hand that off to Joel, who then can go down to the, copywriters and the Photoshop guys. But I mean, right now it's still fairly small. You can see I'm in my garage, and it's like, I may sit here and do 8 Photoshops and 8 articles, and I might have pitched half the headlines myself. So it's still very much a small operation compared to what you might think, just seeing it on the website.
Hey, non sequitur, what does Seth Dillon smell like?
This is a question we gave to
flower
as well.
Yeah,
he's man. What does Seth smell like? That's a great question.
He looks like he smells fantastic.
I've never noticed any bad smells coming from him.
That's good.
Yeah, I can't think of a specific cologne smell.
I think of classic like sandalwood.
Yeah, I think
flower bed.
Probably right.
Yeah,
flower
he gave
bed.
us sandalwood, cinnamon, and money. I think were the 3 that he gave us.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
That's probably about right.
Cocaine.
Seth had mentioned to us when we had him on about the intensity that happened in this Slack channel, that it took him almost a year to pitch a headline that got a like from Kyle. And he said, getting a like from Kyle was like the greatest thing ever. And so we wanted to probe a little deeper. Is that how you determined you were going to assert your dominance over the new owner of the Babylon Bee, or just to start there? Yeah.
I don't know if he told you the story, but when he was looking to buy the Babylon Bee, me and Adam are having talks with him to see if he's the right fit. And he started pitching me headlines over the phone.
Oh no.
And like I said, someone pitching you verbally, at least it wasn't in person, but even just verbally, when you're expected to react, our headlines are not this like stand-up comedy, like say it and immediately someone bursts out laughing, especially when you're asking someone like, is this funny? That's just not a great way to deliver a beat. So I had this really awkward conversation with him for like 5 minutes, and we might have even used 1 or 2 of the ideas. I don't remember, but he's saying, I don't even remember what they were. But he's like reading them and like, what do you think about that one? And I was just like, and I didn't know this guy at all. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I had to tell Adam, like, I don't know what to say. Like, I might have offended him by not laughing at his headlines. But no, it's true. But that is true. Like the writer's room, like I'm not gonna just thumb up something because it comes from a particular person. Like, you really got to prove yourself in there.
So the accusation I think that's levied against the Babylon Bee quite often, you've talked about this on the podcast, is that I liked it more when it wasn't so political. But the truth is that from day one, the Babylon Bee has been very, I would say, even though there's a conservative, definitely conservative bend to everything, but the Babylon Bee has been very fair, but also very political from the beginning. Is it difficult as a Christian satire editor to walk this line between like what's political versus what is maybe like on the line of something that somebody might say is anti-Christian or something of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to like think about that distinction that much. Like, to me, the whole thing of it is something Christian or not is like, it's kind of a dumb question. No, not saying that your question is dumb. It was a very
my
good
question can be dumb if it needs to be.
But no, but the people who make that criticism kind of come from this place of like, oh, you're a Christian, so you shouldn't make a joke about the president. And it's just a weird, like, so as Christians, we only want like non-Christians talking about politics and having that conversation out in the public square. Like we shouldn't be involved. Yeah, it comes from a very specific like vision of how a Christian is supposed to be politically engaged. And the weird thing is the people who make that criticism probably are very politically engaged just from the other side. So it's like, if we were making criticisms of something else, they would be fine with it. And they don't complain when we would criticize Trump or say compare Trump to like, or make fun of the way that people would compare Trump to Jesus or whatever. So I kind of feel like that criticism comes from a little bit of a place of bad faith. I mean, it is fair to say like the Babylon Bee used to publish primarily jokes that were just very niche inside baseball church jokes.
Yeah.
And now primarily, we comment on current events. So I think that's a fair, I don't even know if I want to say criticism, but that's a fair assessment of the progression of the site. But it wasn't really like this evil, Seth that's what they always say, like Seth came in, bought the Bee and started telling everybody what to, you have to, you can't criticize Trump and you have to criticize the Democrats. And, it's like, yeah, that's not at all. I was writing the bulk of the content very early on in the Bee's life, and I still am. So it's more just kind of what was interesting me at the time and what was generating traffic. Obviously that's a concern for us as a site that was run primarily on ad revenue. So all those things kind of factored in. You also just run out of worship leader jokes after a while.
Yeah, I mean, you can only make so many jokes about skinny jeans and llama haircuts before it's on to like the next thing. And you mentioned something. You mentioned,
what do you have against worship pastors?
He's worked with too many of y'all. So you mentioned that you were ad revenue driven. And one of the things that's been brought up, especially over the last 24 months, and we've seen it in some of the emails that have come out, not just from Babylon Bee, but from Not the Bee, is that both of those sites have faced some kind of, at different points, censorship battle and censorship struggle. As you're leading a group through this as the editor-in-chief, what is it like in the way that you, respond to it with the writing? Are you telling your writers, hey, we need to look at this differently because we're facing this? I know a lot of the emails that you guys have put out, I said, this is the reason that we need subscribers. Daly and I both subscribe, so we're on the headline forums pitching bad headlines to you, which is why we won't do it now. But what's that like, for you, and what's that battle been like?
Yeah, in terms of, do we change the content in order to comply with suppression efforts that we've seen on different social media? And it's like, no, absolutely not. But at the same time, you kind of have to integrate that on one level, and it's almost subconscious, and it sucks. Like we used to be able to approach the day at the Babylon Bee and go, I'm going to write one or two political jokes that are commenting on a current event of the day. They're going to make a strong political point that the right largely agrees with, and they're going to get shared like crazy, and that's going to drive our traffic. And then I'm going to take the other 4 or 5 slots or whatever we were doing at the time, and we're going to find stuff that's just funny to us, Christian jokes, general everyday jokes. They're not going to do as well, but we like them, and we're going to keep doing them. And the political ones will kind of carry us. Well, now that Facebook has kind of suppressed all of that, it's like we can't count on that anymore. So it does kind of, almost in an insidious way, make you start thinking differently about what kind of headlines might do well. And it sucks because that's exactly what like Mark Zuckerberg wants. He doesn't want us to post about COVID-19 or the election or lockdowns, masks, whatever, like any trigger word in there, it's going to get suppressed. And it sucks. We'd still write the joke, but to know you're going to put so much effort into something and Zuckerberg is going to completely squash it, it does start kind of grinding on you and making you think, oh, maybe we should back off, maybe we should do a different kind of joke. It sucks. social media shapes content in such a powerful way that we don't even realize. I mean, you think about the stuff that went viral 10 years ago or 20 years ago that would not do well on Facebook these days.
Chocolate rain.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm thinking, stuff like the internet used to be so like such a freaking wild west, like stuff that would go viral would be like, what the heck? Like, why is this going viral? This is so dumb.
Like Homestar Runner.
Like, that's exactly what I had in mind. Like Homestar Runner, those videos aren't super shareable. They're not something that would go viral on Facebook or Twitter. It's just a weird, like, what is this guy? But it went viral in this environment where people could just publish what they want. And that's how people discovered it. And then you called your friends over to your big purple iMac and you all gathered around and
watch strong bad emails.
Yeah.
And you watch the strong bad emails. That environment doesn't exist anymore. You have to write content that will be accepted by whatever the algorithm is doing today, and that sucks.
Yeah, I had one of my first old man moments when I was a youth pastor, whenever I realized that the strong bad emails were on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I showed my students Trogdor the Burninator, and I was so excited about it, and they all looked at me like they're like, why is that funny?
Trogdor!
I was like, shut up. This is what the whole internet used to be. We weren't watching people.
It was great.
Yeah, we weren't watching other kids play games that we had on our Xbox thinking that it was awesome. We watched Trogdor. But
we showed, I want to say it was Patrick in our office. I think it was Patrick. We showed one of those guys, one of those younger guys, the Trogdor video, because I was saying something like, I always say the line, consummate V's. I said consummate.
I said consummate V's. Consummate! Jeez. Guy wouldn't know majesty if it came up and bit him in the face.
Like if something in an article or Photoshop isn't done the way that I wanted to, I'm like, I said consummate V, and he's like, what are you talking about? And I showed him that, and it was kind of like oh, that's pretty funny. But it's like, no, you don't get it. It's really funny. They don't understand.
One of the things that I mandated whenever I took over as the pastor and we started redecorating, like the decorating, there's a committee. We're at a Baptist church, so there's a committee for everything. I told our group of ladies that did the decorating, I was like, you can do whatever you want to, as long as this little figure is drawn in every room. And there is a Trogdor in every room of the building somewhere. And I was like, I'll let you do whatever you want, as long as you give me this one little thing. I'll go to bat for you with whatever decorating decision you make. So you mentioned this is, I'm guessing, Patrick the Laughing Catholic that you're talking about, that you showed this video to.
Yes.
So one of the great things about the Babylon Bee is how you guys have expanded into different mediums. You started off primarily writing the articles online. The podcast has become a huge part of your identity as the Babylon Bee, not just with the interviews, but also with the news show. And really probably the last year or so, Patrick has become the live studio audience that's been there for all of that, and that's gotten a lot of feedback that we've listened to on it.
He helps me know when things are funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Me too.
It is kind of one of those things. So it's nice to have, because it does feel a little bit more like I'm laughing with somebody as I'm laughing at jokes versus just alone in the car. How's the podcast changed the way that you guys have been able to do things as the Babylon Bee? What's it opened up the door for?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, because the assumption with most of these satire sites that have been modeled after The Onion is, that it's anonymous, right? Like that's part of The Onion's brand, is that it's just anonymous. And yeah, you do a little research, you can find out like who the editor is, or whatever. But for the most part, it's like they keep the brand and the personality separate. And we did do that, like for the first 2 years, 2.5, 3 years, we did until we launched the podcast a couple of years ago. And it was kind of a big decision for us. Like, do we want our face to really be on there or not? And I still really don't want our faces to be out there. But because we launched the subscription plans where subscribers can support us and help fund us directly, we kind of felt like that works better if you have a face and a personality associated with it, versus like, I'm just going to help this faceless organization. People tend to like gravitate towards like, I like these guys. I really want to support them. So it kind of humanized the Bee a little bit, where people, we pulled the curtain back a little. Obviously, you guys know the podcast is more behind the scenes rather than straight satire most of the time. So it's been fun there. I mean, obviously, like some of the interviews and the guests that we've gotten have opened a lot of doors, just building those relationships. And that's been a lot of fun, talking to people that are fairly big names, and you're like, and then they're, in the little pre-interview where they're talking to you, or afterwards, they're like, oh, by the way, I love what you guys do. And I just, I read your articles every day. And, it's just, it's really cool to make those connections, because when you're just sitting in the Bat Cave writing articles all day, you don't know who it's reaching or how far it's going. So it has been a lot of fun to build those relationships that way.
That's been my favorite part of doing this. And that's what this is for us, meeting you. You're our hero, so it's really cool getting to chat with you.
Yeah, it's true. It's Toby Mack, Kyle Mann, Kevin Max. So you're right that you replaced Michael Tate in
Michael
DC
Tate?
Tock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Tate.
Well, speaking of making connections, what did you think when Elon Musk tweeted about you guys shaming the Onion and saying that everyone is switching to watching you?
That was bizarre, man. I think I was at a kid's birthday party at the time, just down the street here, and I'm standing out front. And kids' birthday parties, you just stand there for a couple hours and fool around on your phone. And I'm like, looking, I'm like, holy crap! Elon Musk just replied, or he tagged us replying to the Onion or something, because he was mad at the article that they wrote about him. And that was wild, man. That's one of those things that's an out of this world experience, just to see a guy like that.
Having Iron Man tweet at you.
Yeah.
Tony Stark is a huge Babylon Bee fan, and that's just crazy to me. I don't necessarily always agree that we deserve that kind of praise, and and it's just so cool to me to see. It's hard for me to objectively evaluate the Babylon Bee, because I'm so involved in it, and I almost wish that I could just get out of my head for a day and then go read the site and see, what do I like about it? What do I not like about it? Because I'm so involved. But to see a guy who's, worth, I don't know,
he's the richest
zillion
now.
Bitcoins or whatever.
Yeah.
He's worth a trillion Dogecoin, to like, be like, oh, he read the words that I typed right here in this chair. Like,
yeah, he said we're gonna be on Mars in the next 5 years, and he reads the Babylon Bee.
Yeah,
that's crazy. There was one we did a dumb joke about husbands and wives or something, and he commented on it, and it was like, whatever he said about it made it clear that he had read the article. Like, he said something like, oh, the last line is great,
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy cow! Like, he's not just reading the headlines.
Do you think that there's a deal to be made for the new Tesla phone that he's developing, where the Babylon Bee can be a native app?
I think we should do that. I'm going to message Seth right now.
Message Seth and get Dan Dillon on it, because he's the one that works all the apps.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fantastic.
Smart brother.
A solar rechargeable Babylon Bee app.
I love it, man.
I think, and it'll drive your car, so it'll do everything. It'd be great. One of so you started off with
drive your car and make fun of Biden.
Yeah, you did the podcast. The podcast has been insanely successful. We talked a little bit about the subscription stuff. One of the other ways that our listeners can support you is by buying some of your merchandise. Now, we've got our Babylon Bee mugs. I've got my copy of How to Be a Perfect Christian, which came with, I think, the custom level subscriber thing. So that one's actually signed by Kyle, but it was after Adam was purchased out by Seth Dillon, so Adam didn't bother to sign mine.
Did you get well, Adam just won't sign anything.
Yeah. Oh,
he won't sign them. He just refuses.
How does Adam
get
smell?
the one? Is yours a sticker that I signed, or is it signed right on the paper?
Mine's signed on the paper.
Yeah, so you got an earlier one, because we eventually, like, it took me it was taking me so many hours a week to sign all those. Eventually, we got a whole roll of stickers, and I just went and signed a ton, and we just slapped them in there.
What's that called again? A book insert? What's it called?
Book plate.
Book plate. Yep.
I didn't even know about that.
So I do have the book plate for this one, but let's talk a little bit about the newest book that you have, The Babylon Bee's Guide to Wokeness. And before we start talking about the book itself and all the crazy endorsements it's got on it by Andrew Klavan, Eric Erickson, Larry the Cable Guy, Dave Ramsey, all these people have endorsed the book. When you get into a mode where you're writing a book and it's so focused on one thing, is it hard not to take a completely, since it's all satire, is it hard not to take a completely sarcastic look at the world whenever you're doing that? Like, is it difficult to snap out of a mode where you're just making these kind of sarcastic jokes about everything to when one of the kids calls and now all of a sudden you've got to take your child's problem seriously?
Yeah, I always go back to C.S. Lewis hated writing the screw tape letters because he said it made him think in the terms of a demon because he was writing like a demon for so long to write that book. And I might have that wrong, but I think it was like, people were asking if he was going to write a sequel. And he's like, no, I like that book, but I would never write it again. Yeah. And he's kind of explaining why, that it does shape your thinking, that, and you have to be able to have a strong ability to turn it off, and it is hard. My wife will slap me when I'm writing down B headlines at church. It's like, and there's something to that, right? Like, obviously there's lighthearted jokes and you're just saying, oh, that's a funny thing and that's loving, but you don't want to deconstruct everything. Right. There's good things in the world that we don't want to deconstruct.
What?
Yeah. Right. There's not much, but fish tacos. And would never make fun of fish tacos, but no, it's like C.S. Lewis, also an Abolition of Man, said that the reason that we see through things is to see something through it. You can't go seeing through things forever, or to see through everything is not to see. So I think there is a sense in which if you start to think like a deconstructionist in your head all the time, like I have to find the hypocrisy in this, or I have to be cynical about this, or I have to be the one mocking. I always have to mock something, and I can never just say, oh, this is a good thing. That can definitely be dangerous and harmful.
How do you keep, and one of the things I do love about both of these books, How to Be a Perfect Christian and The Guide to Wokeness, is it never feels like you're beating a dead horse, which seems like it would be a nearly impossible task to take one subject, put 200 pages together on it, and to keep each new chapter fresh, and to keep it from feeling like it's almost to the point where it's like being mean or condescending. You guys walk a very fine line. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's tough. I think with that one, that book was so fun to write, and it was also just such a blur that, I'm trying to say, do I have a copy here? Maybe I do. That thing is, that thing we put together so fast that, I don't know, we sat down and we outlined 10 chapters, 12 chapters, whatever it is. Yes. We sat down and just kind of said, well, here's 10 broad categories and let's go, and it was just like, but yeah, you definitely start, there were jokes in there that we had to, it's like, oh, this one's too similar, or this is how we already did that in the other chapter. And, and then you just pull it, and then you just have to bash your head into the keyboard until you come up with something funny. It's easy to get lazy and kind of fall back on the, list of things that are problematic. That's kind of like a go-to joke in the book. I think we managed to make it where they're different enough. You have one that's like here's things that are racist that you wouldn't think are racist, and then in the entertainment section, it's like, here's some children's shows that might be problematic for your child. So we managed to find enough of a nuanced angle on each one that it didn't feel too repetitive, and it was kind of fun to flip through. And those things do so well, those kind of lists, because they are fun to read. But yeah, you you definitely get to a point where you have writer's block and you're like staring at it and you're like, I need to write 4,000 more words on feminism, and I got nothing.
Honey.
Yeah.
So one of the great things about the B, and you've incorporated it in the books, it's the infographic. You guys have become masters at the infographic.
You have a bunch hanging up in your
I do, yeah.
office.
I've got the proper way to give Christian hugs and the proper worship
styles,
poses. Are both hanging in my office. I think I've got the AR-15 one on order that shows the attachment where it shoots MAGA hats at everybody and all that stuff. Where does the impetus from the infographic come from, and how are those written? Is that something that you come up with the idea, you passed on,
flower bed,
comes to you with a funny graphic and sort of a basic outline, and then you guys go and refine the ideas after that?
More recently, it has been like I have an idea and I either sketch out what I'm looking at, and then I have
flower bed
Gavin or one of the graphics guys actually lay it out. That is also basically how the book worked out. The Wokeness book is we wrote the chapters and we'd put like in a little box, like how about a stick figure of this guy punching a Nazi here, and then we'd send it to the graphics team. They'd do some graphics, send it back. We'd do edits, add more graphic ideas, send it back. So we kind of bounced it back and forth 5 or 6 times before it was ready to go. But yeah, that is usually how they happen. Is like the creative writing team has an idea that might. Often they're pitching like a headline idea or a list, like a listicle idea. 7 signs your teenager is secretly a libertarian or whatever. And then I might look at it and go, this has a strong visual element. This would work really well as a graphic. Some of those early ones were more
flower bed,
just saying like, I want to do something about the prayer circle or the worship, the godly hug alternatives.
Yep.
And he'd have kind of that idea, and then he and I would bounce back we'd list 30 or 40 things, and we'd pick the 9 best that have the best visual variety. But since he's been doing more animation, it's been harder for him to devote a lot of time to coming up with the infographic ideas more recently.
So you guys have shifted into doing a lot of animation. So with the normal articles,
I want to
with the
see
books,
Babylon be anime.
with the well, they're kind of moving in that. So what do you guys see in 2022? What's kind of the next project that y'all are going to take on?
Video is the big thing. That is the big push right now, is going into video. And it's been an interesting process. Because we have watched other sites stumble with their video approach. And there's this common error that any company makes, where you think, I'm really good at this one thing, and therefore I can just expand. Therefore I can just expand into all these different areas, and we're going to excel at all of these things because we're really good at this, And it's like, we at the Babylon Bee are really good at writing headlines that are just like kind of cut through the noise and make a point about worldviews or politics, and then we get out. That's what we're really good at, is this really brief thing. And if you ask 100 people what the Babylon Bee is, 99 of them are going to say, oh yeah, it's those headlines. They'll probably say memes,
Yeah.
Those memes I see on Facebook or whatever. And so growing into video is an area where it's like, it's been really interesting for me as a guy who's kind of interested in leadership and business leadership, and how do you grow a business, and it's like trying to maintain that core value of what we are good at, while at the same time saying, okay, but how do we take that that work ethic, that creative energy, and then harness it and then move it into the video realm in a way that makes sense, and in a way that is on brand and supports and supplements the core business of these headlines. So that's been a lot of fun. That is kind of our next big push in this coming year, is we are going to keep pushing hard into video. You can stop me if I ramble too long.
No, all of this is great as far as we're concerned.
You look at the Onion, who had Onion News Network that was just awesome, and that was like a perfectly on brand move into video that made total sense for the Onion at the time, and is still just iconic. If you mention the Onion to somebody, they might bring up the video content. That's a part of their core brand now. Is the Onion News Network.
Sony's newest piece of crap that doesn't do the thing it's supposed to do is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. I mean, if I think of Onion stuff that's funny, like I think of a couple of awesome headlines, and then I think of like some of the funniest Onion News Network videos that I saw.
Yep.
But then they also stumbled a lot with like the Onion movie, and
that was terrible,
just awful.
Yep.
And then more recently they tried to do video that wasn't the news satire. It was like, just, I don't even know how to describe it. Like they had personalities and they would come up with like a fake show. Like this is a fake late night show or a fake cooking show or a fake, I think they had a fake like Alex Jones personality for a while. And they were trying to like build brands around these people and have them push video content. And it didn't make sense. You're like, what is this? Like I'm following this for the Onion for the kind of cutting news stuff.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're trying to figure out. Like, how do we make stuff that makes sense for the Onion and yet, or not for the Onion, for the Babylon Bee, and yet at the same time makes sense in 2021. Like, do we want to just remake the Onion News Network? It's like, I don't know. They did that 15 years ago. It's I don't know if that's the thing to parody nowadays. But yeah, if you look at the stuff that does really well on our YouTube channel, it is that. It is like, we did the motorcyclist who identifies as a bicyclist.
Oh my gosh. I showed that to my dad. He loved it.
And it just makes sense, right? It's like, this is what Babylon Bee video should be. It's like that. That's exactly what I picture. So we want to like find ways to move into that, up the production value, just keep churning out stuff like that really will build the brand and introduce it to a new audience on YouTube, because there's a lot of people there that hadn't heard of us before.
Okay, stop. That's too much.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. So Ethan had mentioned a couple of times on the podcast that he feels like the Christian audience is ready for their own version of South Park. That Christians want something that is uniquely theirs, that handles things from their point of view, and that his dream would be to create something like a Christian South Park. And it seems like
South Park's not Christian?
Correct. Yeah. Sorry. The South Park Jesus has nothing to do with the actual Jesus, Dan. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But
you don't get $10,000
No. The concepts that you guys are working with seem that they could head in that direction. It also seems like you guys have a certain amount of I don't know what the right way to put it is. It's not that you don't care, but that
impetus.
Or Teflon kind of around you. That you let things kind of roll off your back, that you are not, that you're completely immune to cancel culture, but that you've fought that fight a few times, and you've got some people like Doug TenNapel, for instance, who y'all may not always be in alignment, but at least you're adjacent to, that seems like he is also in that same space where like, yeah, say whatever you want to about me, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, is potentially something like a Christian version of South Park, or something that really does, from an animated perspective, cut to the core of what's happening in the world today, social issues and otherwise, something that you guys might have in the mix.
Yeah, we have no concrete plans for that, but it's certainly something that we've brought up over and over again. I mean, there's this move into video. It's like there are so many opportunities. Everybody comes knocking on our door to work with us on video, but I think so far we have been really like hesitant and really circumspect about those opportunities, because there's a lot of people that would just grab the Babylon Bee brand and just slap it on a subpar product. There's a ton of people that would do that out there. So, I think a key to a smart growth into animation or a show like that would be that we have to have creative control of it. We have to be able to do it ourselves. We can't have a situation where there's some studio that's throwing out wacky ideas or is in creative control of something like that. But there are these big money ideas that we keep coming back to. Like, yeah, if there was an animated series that could take off something in the South Park vein, or the one everybody always brings up is the Babylon Bee Saturday Night Live. Like, I think every single YouTube video we publish, there's 10 comments on it. Like, why is this? Why do these guys not have their own SNL? Like that's just like one of those no-brainer ideas that, if done right, would be awesome. and if done wrong with the wrong partners would sink the brand, so so it's hard kind of trying to steer the ship and figure out like what opportunity makes sense, because every decision you make, it's like we're going for this and not that, and there's a huge opportunity cost involved with any decision in the creative venture.
But I hear Seth Dillon's got a thick wallet.
Yeah.
It's true. That's very true. I don't know if you guys saw on our Christmas party picture that we posted in the premium section of the Babylon Bee, but everybody's dressed up fancy, and Seth and Dan Dillon are both wearing hoodies.
Oh.
So that's what you can. That's what you can do. That's why every Corvette owner has a pair of cargo shorts and flip flops. They're just like, I got so much money, I don't care.
Yeah, it's the FU money.
The richer you get, the more you look like Zuckerberg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said the name.
Yeah. Don't speak his name. Well, man, we really appreciate the time. We end all of our interviews with a segment that we call Controlled Rowdiness. It's just a handful of rapid-fire questions. There are no right answers, but there are several wrong ones. So make sure not to step in any of those landmines. If you're willing to play along, I'm going to throw it over to Big Dan so he can get us started.
Which of the 12 disciples would have the biggest TikTok following?
I think that would be Peter's the obvious answer. I think you look at like James and John would have like a joint account. There's those
maybe stitching each other.
Yeah, there's accounts like that where there's like two guys that'll riff off each other and do stuff. They would definitely, James and John would have like a discernment account or something on TikTok for sure.
All right, I could see that. You say in the book we didn't, or a lot of people have ended up on the wrong side of history, like people who hate The Last Jedi and people who bought HD DVD. Is this your admission that you were wrong about The Last Jedi, that it's actually a good movie?
Well, I have a confession to make. There's an old tweet of mine from 2018 or whenever Last Jedi came out where I say how great it was. And I'd just gotten out of the theater and I'm like, wow, that was fun. And I stand by that in the moment there was like this, like, wow, it's Star Wars, and there's this magic spell that comes over me whenever I hear the fanfare. Looking back, there was just one too many subversions. Like, I actually don't, tell me if I'm going too long.
No, you're fine.
I will. Mind if Rian Johnson had subverted like one thing, I actually think the plot point that what's the girl? I don't know her name. Rey has no special lineage, like her parents are nobodies. That's an interesting plot point because it does subvert your expectations. You go into a Star Wars movie thinking, oh well, she's the daughter of the Emperor or or whoever, like she's a Skywalker. That is
a Skywalker. Yeah.
Like probably if you looked at message boards leading into Last Jedi, nobody guessed like, oh, she's nobody.
She's trash.
It's a cool idea.
Space trash.
But then you take that and then you're like, and also, and then they just subvert every other expectation of the Star Wars universe in the same film, and it's like you can get away with one, but you can't get away with multiple subversions of different plot points. And ultimately, it's not really Rian Johnson's fault. It's the fault of Kathleen Kennedy and Star Wars and Disney that they didn't sit down and have one Zoom call ahead of time, and say, here's the plot line of the three films. Also, that is my admission that I did buy HD DVD. And my wife will never let me live that down.
Were those in the purple cases? It was red.
It was red.
Yeah, I remember that.
I still have some.
Yeah, I'm all out. I don't think I ever bought one.
Yeah, like you don't have the Betamax version of The Hobbit?
No.
Oh, that's so sad.
Okay, whose turn is it?
It's yours.
Okay, you've had a couple guests on the show that you mentioned when they were off air that you believe that their theological stance may have been wrong. Who do you think was the most heretical of everyone you've interviewed?
I mentioned that they were wrong when I was off the air.
No. As soon as they were off the air. So the lady who wrote The Shortest Leap is the one that comes to mind.
Uh-huh.
She was talking about creationism. As soon as she got off, you're like, no, it's very interesting. She's wrong. But
well, I guess if we limit this to if you limit it to just believers, because obviously the atheists are all wrong.
Yeah. Sorry, James Lindsay.
Yeah, all those guys are wrong. Yeah, people that are way off. Like, actually, I don't know if he knew what he was saying, but that did you see when we interviewed Say Goodnight, Kevin?
Yes.
And he said some wacky stuff, and I was like, "Wait a minute, can you defend that? Like, what are you talking about?" And I think he was just trying to make a philosophical point or something, but it came off like I got to remember exactly what he said, but he said something about like
Lucas remembers. Yeah, he remembers everything.
So there was a lot of things with the Say Goodnight, Kevin, because he goes back and like reviews Christian movies, right? That's his whole thing. Yep. And
he has the best memory on the planet.
And now you put me on the spot. It's completely gone. So we'll just blame Say Goodnight, Kevin.
Yeah, he said something about God, like, oh, and I think maybe God is wrong about things. So, like, he said something like that, and I was just like, wait, what?
Oh.
He's like, no, I'm not. He's like, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. And then he like tried to backpedal it. He's like, I was just curious, blah, blah, and he's actually a good friend of ours, and he does editing for like our breakout videos and our TikTok videos.
Oh, that's awesome. So you spent a few years as a pastor. You talk about that in the podcast fairly often. What do you miss the most, if anything, about doing ministry, or about being in vocational ministry of some kind?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I miss preaching the most. Like, preaching is I love preaching, and it was something where just. When you're up there preaching, you're really preaching to yourself as much as you're preaching to everybody else. So I think that's probably the part that I miss the most, is like standing up there and like preaching to people that I don't know. There was this realization that like, oh, okay, 99% of what I'm going to say, these people aren't going to remember, in a week or two. And I don't say that cynically or saying that they were dumb or something. Like, I say that just because that's just the reality. Pastors have this inflated sense of like, this message is going to change everybody's lives. And it's more just like this, developing this discipline of ordinary faithfulness, like, I'm just going to preach the word, and I hope that, and I'll trust God that it's going to eventually, gradually, very slowly affect people's hearts and minds, and not like, oh, it's all me. And if I just preach the exact right message and it's as powerful as an old John Piper message or something, that, if I preach like Spurgeon, they'll all repent. And like, you got a real like humility from it, that like, oh, okay, that's not how this is, and you get that idea from Bible college and seminary and stuff.
I would have to agree.
Did Spurgeon ever preach with a lit cigar? I don't know.
I would assume that anytime Spurgeon was sitting around talking, he was preaching in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So
probably,
yeah, quite possibly. But I can relate to that. Like, as a pastor, there is a lot of expectation that like, all right, well, I really nailed this, and then you get no response. And my wife has this stack of notes that she's taken over the course of the last couple of years from my preaching, and I'm like, so what's in there? She's like, I'm never gonna read them again, so it doesn't really. Oh, great. So
okay, kiss one, marry one, team up with one, assuming that you're not married. Don Lemon, Chris Wallace, Brian Stelter.
So if I am married,
you get a mulligan.
Sure.
But then I don't have to kiss one either, do I?
No. Now you just have to pick which one is the best journalist.
Okay, best journalist out of Lemon.
Is that a harder question?
Yeah, Lemon, Wallace, and Stelter. Which one's the best journalist?
Wait, who were the three?
Don Lemon, Chris Wallace, Brian Stelter. Who's the best journalist?
I mean, I think it's Wallace, hands down. I don't love him, but
yeah,
I think he might be in the category of journalist.
He might be in the category of journalist. Okay, I think it's fair. Yeah.
Oh, Samuel's paused. Sorry,
I did something.
That's all right.
I do like that. If not, okay, pick the best journalist.
Yeah. We posed a couple of questions in our Facebook group about, we were having Kyle on. What questions would you ask?
What do you think Brian Stelter smells like?
Potatoes.
Okay, go ahead.
We got one. I don't know if you're familiar with this particular Facebook user. Carrie Pomeroli wants to know when you're going to hire more female writers, and specific her.
Yeah, she asks me this all the time.
We figured that she did. So
She's just she's got to pitch funnier jokes, and then I'd hire her.
fair enough.
I said that in a joking way. I wasn't trying.
No. I'll text her right now and say, "Hey, Kyle says be funnier, Carrie, and you'll get more stuff on the B." I think that's.
Right.
I think that sounds like it's pretty fair.
Okay, my last question,
last
unless
one.
you've got
Very
one. Who was the best Batman?
I have some strong thoughts about this.
I do. We both do, as well.
Are we excluding animated?
No.
All right. Well, then it's Kevin Conroy.
Thank you.
But if we're not excluding, let's say just live action. I don't know.
Will Arnett.
I tend to think that Christian Bale is a little bit overrated, and I don't say that because I don't like the Christian Bale movies. But I think Dark Knight is an overrated movie, and he gets inflated because of Heath Ledger's death and his incredible performance as the Joker. That kind of elevates that whole trilogy, where I actually think that there were some missteps there. For me, I just love the Michael Keaton Batmans. Like, I just, and I don't know that Michael Keaton is the best Batman necessarily, but the way that Tim Burton creates Gotham, and the what the heck is the dude's name? The composer, Oingo Boingo guy.
Yes, him, Dr. Boingo.
Yeah, what the heck is his name? Why am I'm blanking? Anyway, his soundtrack just like
We're gonna
holy
IMDb
cow,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of have to go. I kind of have to go with Michael Keaton, even though it's a little stiff and goofy. It's at least Batman, and it's not afraid to be a comic book, which I like.
I've always thought Will Arnett had the best portrayal as Lego Batman, that he captured a side of the character that no one else did.
So here's the news on that. He's
Danny
not
Elfman,
he's Danny Elfman. He's not the only Lego Batman.
What?
Yeah. In the new Lego DC Villains video game,
Oh yeah, those
Kevin
don't count.
Conroy portrays Lego Batman.
really?
Oh well, then Conroy wins.
Thank you.
Hands down. All right. Last question. You have mentioned on the podcast that there are a handful of episodes that y'all have had to delete over the last couple of years. Which one of those episodes do you wish you still had available for download?
Hold on 1 second.
No problem.
Do you guys have Steam?
Yes.
Yeah.
My son has my
Yeah.
5-year-old.
I know where you're going with this. I have a son too.
He decides he's going to stream a video game from this computer right now. So Cooking
nice.
Simulator just launched. And now, okay, I am back.
Cooking Simulator.
These kids, man. I'm sorry. What was the question?
What of the
episode?
Yeah,
Deleted
of the
episodes.
episodes you've had deleted, which one do you
Will
wish
you ever
had
have
available?
DC talk on the full DC talk on the show?
Those are two totally separate questions.
I'm trying to think of the ones. I'm trying. I don't think Kevin Max will talk to us anymore. He unfollowed us.
Did he
Sad.
really?
He's a deconstructionist.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. He is a heavy deconstructionist.
I was walking by a hat shop in Nashville, and they had just like random like stock images of men in hats that they had like downloaded off the internet or whatever. And one of them was Kevin Max, and I don't think they knew that. I think they just Googled like men in fedoras, and there's like a random picture of Kevin Max. As I'm like, hey, that's Kevin Max. But so we had an awesome episode that would have gone completely viral with a member of the Trump administration, and the member of the Trump administration did not want us to publish it, and that was very sad.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it was insane, and we were so excited about it, and then yeah, that was not good.
Why did Ivanka do that?
Yeah, that was the one.
Why did Ivanka do that? I don't know that we're ready to levy that allegation. Well, Kyle, man, we appreciate Kyle Mann. Actually, we appreciate all the time that you've given us
Man,
today.
Kyle.
Yeah, make sure that you check out the Babylon Bees new book, The Babylon Bees Guide to Wokeness. BabylonB.com. Tell our listeners and subscribers where it is that they can find you and follow the Babylon B stuff.
Yeah, Babylon B stuff is all over social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, which is a thing apparently. And but the best way to find us is just go babylonb.com, and that's where we are. You can sign up for our newsletter and get updated that way.
Rock and roll. Kyle, thanks for the time, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Kyle freaking Mann. Yep. Wow. Let's restart. I don't think so. I think that was good. I really liked the way that you yabbed that.
I'm tired.
So much stuff in that interview. One of the things I think is really interesting about he and Ethan is that there are some really funny moments, but both of those guys seem to be so introspective whenever they're answering questions. And when you think of Kyle as like editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee, if you wanted to restart that badly, we could.
No, we'll just continue.
When
Hold on. My pack unplugged. Here, hold this.
just.
Boop. No, go on, keep going. Kyle and Ethan are introspective.
Yeah, they're really introspective guys, and I think a lot of times people get the impression that they're like just fun and yucks all the time, but Kyle takes very seriously the job of being the leader of the Babylon Bee. He takes the whole responsibility of leadership, of cultivating a culture of creativity, of helping the other guys feel like they can flex their creative muscles as his job. And I think that that's really interesting, the way that he's looking at being the leader of the Babylon Bee and vision casting.
Here, hold this.
Figuring out what's next for them in the ways of animation. How do they stay ahead of the curve and making sure that the Bee stays relevant, and how do they approach satire in a way that people haven't done it before, specifically whenever you're looking at like what The Onion has done, what The Onion has been successful with, that they've been successful with some similar things, but they want to do something that's outside of the box and something that's different. You know what I mean?
Yes. What a great interview.
Hey guys, make sure
the wheels literally fell off right at the end.
Right at the end. Kyle was awesome though.
I mean, you saw, like, I was just sitting here. Did I just like smack my mic stand?
I think so.
For the audio listeners, my side of the table just completely fell apart. The mic fell on the floor. The arm holding it fell off the table. My audio pack unplugged from my headphones. So not only could I not talk in the mic, but also I couldn't hear what was going on.
You're slowly killing me.
Immediately fell to pieces.
Well, hey, everybody.
Kyle, man, thank you for coming on. This was fantastic.
Thanks for listening to the Reverend and the Reprobate. Make sure to like, subscribe, ding the little bell, review us on, if you're listening on Podchaser, Bullhorn FM, or Apple Podcast. It goes a long way to help us out. And you know what? The best way, though, that we get subscribers is by word of mouth. Tell a friend about us. You guys have good. Get give, and we'll see you next week.
See ya. That's gonna be our best ending.
Hey everyone, this is Kyle Mann of the Babylon Bee, and this is why you should never listen to the Reverend and the Reprobate.
When you think of Kyle's like editor-in-chief of the Babylon